Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Yolanda Felder Show. And again, you will not be disappointed. I am so grateful and honored to have two amazing women here with me today. You, like myself, are going to be so inspired, so taken, and just, it's going to make you literally jump out of your seat and say, you know what, I can do this. There is nothing that I'm facing in life that can overtake me, because what did God say? He said that we are more than conquerors. What does that mean? We're more than. We're more than conquerors. And you know what? That speaks to my guest today. I want you to join me in welcoming Dorraine Desmarat.
Yes.
Sorry. We're going to call her Dee Dee.
Yes. A lot simpler.
Yes. And Numita St. Louis. We're going to call her Numita. I said that okay. All right. Welcome, ladies. Welcome. Well, today, this show is especially close to my heart because I've been wanting to share your story for a while. And I know that your stories will it will enlighten, inspire so many people, because we have a lot of people out here who are in despair, in a place of hopelessness. And that's not the will of God. No. That is not what He had planned for us. Right. And the ultimate goal is to move all of us back into where we originally was, with Him, one with Him, walking in victory, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't want to say anything about anybody's story. I want everybody to share their story, okay? So we're going to start with you because you're the one closest to me.
I'm okay with that.
You okay?
I'm good.
Cool. All right, so Dorraine, Dee Dee,
yes,
share your story with us. Tell us from the beginning.
Oh, gosh, from the beginning. I would have to say from a young age, I always knew I was different from everybody in my family. And I come from a huge family. But I never knew exactly what it is, because I never melted in with just one side of the family or, joined in with the other. I was always what I considered at the time the black sheep. Mm-hmm. But now, as I'm older, I see it was just my purpose was completely different than from everybody else. So I was born and raised in Brooklyn, and we all know how, Brooklyn was back in the day. It wasn't the great Brooklyn that it is now. So, yeah, it was one of those, you have to learn and live by the streets to make it another day, to do the same thing all over again.
Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
But it made you stronger. It makes us stronger because we all grew up in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So,
all of us did.
So, especially when you know the rules of it, you know what to do, what not to do.
Yes.
But
yes.
of course, regardless how good you might, be raised at home, you still kind of melt in with the stuff that's going on in the streets. So,
it's your environment.
Yes.
Oh gosh, it was goodness. So I would say like around middle school, it's like maybe 6th or 7th grade. I got into a gang. I was gang affiliated.
Okay.
And it wasn't just, because I had a bad upbringing or anything. I just felt like being around everybody else. Little did I know how the gangs really worked. And we got into some fights, the typical stuff in Brooklyn, get into fights because this person don't like that person. You don't even know the person, but you have to fight because we're all in this together. And it was just one fight one time. And in Brooklyn, I used to go to a school, PS 181, and 2 blocks away was a cemetery. So we'll always tell everybody, meet me at the cemetery. We're going to take it down. The irony of that, right? Oh, goodness. But it was one fight at the cemetery. And, of course, we don't know why we're there. A good couple of us were just like, why are we even going over there? Like, we don't even know these people. I'm actually in a good mood today. I don't feel like fighting. But, we have to go, because if you don't go, then you're going to get beat up by everybody else.
Right.
So we went to the fight, and I was like, okay, we got to get fight. We had the scarf on.
Wow, yes.
Had to, be prepared, had the Vaseline on the face, can't have nobody scratch you. Get into a fight. Oh, goodness. I had the Timbs on. We were ready for war, and we don't even know why we're fighting. But something in my gut was just like, you know what, you should not be doing this. But of course I was like, I can't punk out. I can't be the one person.
Right.
I went in and we're fighting. And in the midst of the fighting, I feel a sharp pain in my back. Ooh. And I didn't pay attention to it because I was like, you know, I have this person in front of me. I kind of have to beat him up and then I'll pay attention to whatever else is going on. And of course, cop came. So we all like scattered all over the place. Halfway walking home, my friend was just like, you're bleeding. Ooh. And I was just like, no, I'm not. I was like, I'm fine. And she's like, no. The whole right side of my back was just like, blood was just dripping down. Wow. And I was just like, what happened? And I was like, I know I can't go home like this because I would definitely get it.
In trouble.
Yeah. Oh, that's an understatement. So I was just like, oh my God, what do I do? If I go to the hospital, they're going to call my mom because I'm a minor. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. But my friend's mom, her sister and her mom works at the hospital. So her sister was home. So we went to her house and she was like, you know what happened? And we told her we got into a whole fight and everything of a sort. So she lifts up my shirt. I got stabbed, did not even realize it. And she said that the blade had to be at least a 2 to 3 inch blade, and over an inch went into me. And she was just like, you are so lucky. And I was like, what happened? She was like, if the person would have went any further up and to the right, it would have nicked a major artery. And I would not even made it all the way to her house. Wow. And I was just like, look at that. I'm lucky. And I always had that, you know, if something happens to me and I survived it, I was always lucky. Right. Okay. That's how I always thought of it. Yes. Oh, okay, the universe just likes me that day. I was lucky. Right. I didn't know as much disobedience and rebellion I was doing at that time, God was just like, I can't let you go. I cannot let you go. And he spoke to my heart one day and I got out the gang.
Awesome.
Wasn't easy, but I found a way out. And, you know, I was like, you know, I'm going to do right. I finished my schooling, went into high school, was getting good grades and everything else. And it wasn't, I thought, you know, the universe finally liked me. I was like, you know, things are going good in my life. But of course, every time something starts going good, something has to happen. And it wasn't until, I think it was like 2 months before my 16th birthday, I had horrible pain in my stomach. And I thought it was something I ate. I was like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have eaten that. Even though mom cooked it, I shouldn't have ate it. I was like, my stomach is going to hurt. Oh gosh, it's going to be a horrible weekend. Mm-hmm. But it persisted for like a good month. Oh. And it actually got worse after a while. Oh, okay. And it wasn't until, and my mom was, you know, like every single mom, always working 2-3 jobs. So I practically had to take care of myself, which was okay. I've been doing it for a while. I went to the doctor and I was like, well, you know, I feel this pain here and whatever. And that's when I found out about the OBGYNs. I had no idea who they were. Mm-hmm. And she was like, okay, we're going to do a pap smear. And I was just like, pap away. Sure. You know, I have no idea what she's doing. I know she's doing something. Pap away. So she said, we're going to have your results in about a week or two. You know, if we call you and, you know, if we could tell you if it's good or bad, but if we need to call you in, then, you know, we have to talk more serious. Okay. I'm like, no problem. Go about my business. They call me. I'm like, oh, great. It's probably not that bad. And she said, you know, we need you to come in. I was just like, I don't like that. It's like being called off into the principal's office. You're just like, oh, you don't know what you did, but you know something's wrong. Right. So, but I was like, you know, I'm going to stay positive. It's probably nothing. No problem. We went in and she sat down and she had that, you know, very somber look. Mm. And I was just like, she's not smiling today. I was like, we always joke and we're not joking today, so it's serious. So she sat down and she was like, well, you know, like, do you have health insurance? And like, what kind of health insurance do you have? And I was like, they're good. Very nervous. I'm like, I'm trying to smile to like stay positive. Right. But I knew in my heart something was wrong. And she was just like, well, you know, we're going to need to see you more regularly, you know, and we're going to do some tests and everything. And I'm like, but what happened? Like, you haven't told me. Mm. And she looked at me, she looked down. She had to like take a deep breath because I guess it was just that hard for her to tell me. Mm-hmm. But she looked back at me and she was like, you have cancer. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, what do you?
16.
At 16. Mm-hmm. I was just like, what?
Were you there with your mom?
No, I went by myself, which I'm very happy I did, because I'm pretty sure my mom would have completely lost it. Lost it. So I was just like, well, okay, you know, what do I have to do? And she's like, well, you know, we're going to make an appointment for you to come back, and, you know, we're going to do some tests and whatever. So on the way home, I felt like I wanted to cry, but I come from a very deeply rooted spiritual family. We might be different denominations, but when it comes to any problems, the first thing out of anybody's mouth, pray about it.
Yes.
Always pray about it. And as rebellious as we are sometimes, especially during the teenage years, that was the one time I couldn't even doubt it. I was like, I have to pray about it. And I started crying when I got home because one of my sisters died from cancer. She had ovarian cancer, and she died at 33. And so when I heard it, I was just like, I can't have this happen to me. I was like, I'm only 16. So you're trying to tell me I only have till 33? You know, that's just hurtful. And I made up in my mind, I was like, you know, I don't want no kids. I don't want no family, because I saw the devastation of how when she left her family. And I was like, I can't have that happen.
And that's a natural response. You're 16.
I was like, I can't have that.
You've been diagnosed with something at 16, and you're in there by yourself.
By myself. And at first, I was just like, you know what? It would be easier if I just kill myself. I was like, I know everybody will be sad, but to go through the whole process that my sister went through, I was like, I can't do that on the one. I actually tried killing myself 3 times. Nothing worked. And I got mad at God. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I was like, you wouldn't let me take my life, but you want me to go through this? And it wasn't until I spoke to my grandmother about this, and she was just like, it's going to hurt, and you're not going to understand it. But if he has you going through it, there's a reason why. And I was just like, but Grandma, it makes no sense. I was like, you saw what it did. I was like, we lost her. Like, I don't want the family to go through that again. And she was like, but there's an outcome. I was like, what is the, can you talk to him so he could tell me?
Thank God for grandmas.
I was like, because ever since I was young, I always thought my grandmother had that speed, direct line to Jesus. Because when I talk to him, I never hear nothing back. But when Grandma talks to him, Grandma gets an answer like that.
Grandmothers know how to pray. That's why. That's the reason why we...
And I was so angry at God, I stopped going to church. I stopped praying. I went out there. Like, God told me to go right. I went left, made a U-turn, spiraled back, and did my own thing. I did not listen to him. But it wasn't until my grandma had a stroke, and she knew that she didn't have long. So she spoke to me, and she was just like, you know, I want you to get back to church. And I was like, okay, Grandma, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. You know, saying anything to shut Grandma up, because we didn't feel like having that conversation again. And every time I would speak to her, did you go to church this weekend? Sure. Of course, Grandma. She knew I was lying, but she had to kept on be praying, because I didn't feel like going to church. Even though there was that voice in my mind, go to church. I was just like, oh, I'll go next weekend. It's not like the church is going anywhere. I'll go next weekend. And it wasn't until I was about 17, almost turning 18, I found out I was pregnant. And I was just like, great. The one thing I did not want happens. And I was just like,
what else?
I was like, what?
At 17, yes, that would be, yeah,
like,
that would be the question.
And being so angry at God, I let loose. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. First, you give me the diagnosis. Now I tell you I don't want no kids. Now you have the nerve to let me get pregnant. Even though I know it was my fault, but still, I was just like, you got to be kidding me. And I told myself, okay, well, I don't believe in abortion, so I have no choice but to do this. And when I told my doctor I was pregnant, she had that look like, are you mad? I was just like, I'm not getting an abortion, so we have to figure out some other maneuvers with the testing and treatments and everything else. So she wanted me to do chemo. I said, that's going to have to wait till after I give birth. and I'm breastfeeding. And she was like, well, we can't do chemo. I was like, well, I'd rather do natural, holistic things that won't affect the baby much. 9 months later, water breaks. It's that time. First parent, not, no experience. I mean, I babysat my brothers and sisters, but that's completely different when you're pushing it out. Painful. Couldn't really get most of the drugs because of the treatments and stuff that I was getting, so they didn't want it to counteract. And the whole time, I just kept on praying that even if I didn't make it, at least let my baby make it. That's the one thing. At least let me leave something positive out of everything that I've been through in this world. So she came out, beautiful little 7-pound girl, healthy, all 10 fingers and toes. And I never understood the tears that mothers have when they first have a baby. Until then, I was just like, thank you, Jesus. Like, something good happened out of every mess. So I went back to treatment. And I think when I was around 20, I went into remission. And I was so happy. I was like, I might have an opportunity, to see her grow up and everything else. I was very, very happy. Super happy. I was still rebellious. Wasn't really going back to church much. But I did start praying. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with my grandmother. And she was just like... Oh, so
Grandma's
still there.
Awesome.
Grandma was not going nowhere. I needed Grandma for some tips. I was like, Grandma, something's wrong with the baby. I had to go to Grandma. But she had multiple strokes from the first one.
That happens.
So she was just like, I need you to go back to church. She wasn't asking anymore. She was telling me, I need you to go back to church. And I was like, but Grandma, I'm so busy with the baby, and I'm working. I want to go back to school. She was like, you need to go back to church. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll try. I really, really will. And that was the last time I spoke to Grandma. About a week or so later, we had the call that she passed away.
She lived in the same town?
No, she actually lived in Florida at that time when she passed away. And she was supposed to come see us because we was going to all go for, I think, my brother's graduation at that time, and we were going to fly back to Florida to spend summer break. But it never happened. And that's when it hit me, like, she wanted me to go back. I felt so guilty because I did not go back while she was still here. And I remember was at church for the funeral. And everybody was crying because, she was gone. But I was so mad because I was just like, you've taken my sister, you've given me this diagnosis, and the one person that I had left, you've taken her. I was like, what am I supposed to do in this world now? Like, I'm in this world with all these evil people, and the one little pure people that I had, they're all gone. I was like, how am I supposed to get through any of this? So I prayed. I think that was the first time that I actually full-blown committedly prayed. It wasn't the, the microwave prayer, thank you God for this day, amen. It was a full-blown on my knees, tears coming out, snot coming out, prayer. And I told myself I was going to find a church. I was like, I have to find a church around my area, and I have to go there regularly, consistently, not on Easter Sunday and New Year's.
A holiday church person.
Or when they're having that good communion on Palm Sunday. I was like, I'm going to go there consistently. And of course, after school finished that time, I was like, all right, I'm going to go. And then I started getting the pains again. And I was just like, oh gosh, you have got to be kidding me. At first, I thought it was bad cramps from my period. So I went to the doctor. I was like, is there like a birth control that helps with the cramping? And she was like, oh yeah, we think we have something. I said, fine, that's great. So of course they had to do the pap smear, and I was like, pap away. We've been doing this for so long now.
And how old are you now?
I just turned 20.
Okay.
Because she died in September and my birthday's in December.
Okay.
So I just turned 20, and I was like, I'm going to start the new year fresh. I'm going to start going to church. I had the year planned. I had my whole resolutions and everything written down. Of course, the week before Christmas, she calls me in. And I says, okay. The first time you called me in, it wasn't good. Oh, okay. You know what? Nope, we're going to stay positive. I was like, okay, she's probably just calling me in saying she got the birth control that works with me. Great. Nope, she calls me in, and she said that it came back, and now I'm a stage 2. And I was just like,
At 20.
At 20. And I just threw my hands up like, are you serious, Lord? Like, I said I'm going to go back to church. I'm trying to do right, and you give me this?
But did you go back to church when you were supposed to?
Nope, because I got so mad. Because I told myself I was going to do it for New Year's. You know, I wanted to start the year off right. This happened the week before. It was like 2 days before Christmas this happened. So I got mad. I said, I'm not going. There's no way I'm going to serve a person unless this happens to me. And of course, I go off. I don't go to church. I don't do anything. I stopped praying. I got angry. And God being who he is, I wind up pregnant again. And I was just like, you have a sense of humor, because I told you I didn't want it the first time. Now you gave me 2. What am I supposed to do with this one? Grandma's not here. I can't call grandma for help. It's like between 2 kids, and now I work full time, and I have to go to treatments. I was drained. Physically, I was tired. Spiritually, I was empty. Mentally, I was exhausted. I just couldn't do it anymore.
Okay. We're going to stop you there, because you have more to share, because your story is just speaking. I know plenty of people that have gone through, maybe not cancer, but gone through a diagnosis, and that has been their position.
Yes.
So you wait right there. Hi, Numita.
Hi.
Because you two are going to find, I know you're listening to her, and it's like,
Yeah.
you can relate. Stories is just similar.
Almost similar.
Exactly. Share your story.
My story is second to the youngest of 7 kids.
So Numita, this is so ironic. I'm saying ironic, but this is God.
Yes.
He gets the glory always.
Yes.
So I want you to share your story with us. Oh, ooh, I'm excited. I am. Oh my goodness, you guys. I am excited. Go ahead.
When I heard your story, Dee, our story just follows one another. It coincides a lot. I'm a second child of 7 kids. I'm the second to the youngest of the baby. Everybody calls me the spoiled brat. I was the black sheep of the family. Technically, I still am to the rest of my siblings, of course. But when I was about, maybe about 11 years old, I really started to rebel. We just moved out of Brooklyn, came into Queens, and just was like, okay. So I came into Queens with this Brooklyn attitude.
How we are.
And it was like, okay. I fought with all of my siblings. I fought with people outside. It was just like, oh gosh, here comes trouble. But they'd be like, but you look so innocent. They're like, no.
I always get fooled by the face.
So they'd be like, Chucky, here she come. Chucky's little sister's outside. Like, no, don't deal with her. Don't talk to her. But I remember when I was maybe about like 14 years old, 13, 14 years old, I remember complaining to my mom. I was active. I was in dancing school at the time. But I used to complain to her and be like, I don't feel good. I'm in pain. I don't feel good. She'd be like, take a Tylenol. Go outside. Just get out the house. Just go. And I used to be like, okay. So for years, I just kept complaining. I have sickle cell trait. In my family, majority of us have the sickle cell trait and the disease. So, so I pretty much knew, okay, well, I only have the trait, but I don't get sick. I shouldn't feel this way. Something is actually wrong. So when I went to the doctor, he was like, oh, you have RA. What is RA? Oh, your body, your joint's gonna hurt. What is RA? You know, back then it was like, just take this and just because our parents didn't want to explain to us more and more in detail, because my mother felt like she didn't want to keep me stagnated and be like, there's something wrong with me. So just take this medicine, you'll feel good, just go outside, go to school, play, and just live a normal life as much as possible. So during that time, I was just like, okay. I still was rebelling. I fought with everyone, did everything wrong except for the right things. My mother would take this and just, because our parents didn't want to explain to us more and more in detail, because my mother felt like she didn't want to keep me stagnated and be like, there's something wrong with me. So just take this medicine, you'll feel good, just go outside, go to school, play, and just live a normal life as much as possible. So during that time, I was just like, okay. I still was rebelling. I fought with everyone, did everything wrong except for the right things. My mother would tell me, make a right. I'd be like, all right, I'll make a left.
Yes.
And she knows, so it was like everything was the total opposite. My mom used to, and what happened was I got pregnant at the age of 15. So I had my daughter at the age of 16. And I remember I didn't know what was wrong with my body, and my mom was like, you're pregnant. I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, you're pregnant. And with my mother, with having a Haitian mom, it was like, and they just give you that look of disgust. And I just was like, no, I'm not. And it just was like, okay. So I was like, and we were on vacation. She's like, you're throwing up. I was like, it's the water. It's the water. She's like, when we get home, we'll fix this situation. So what happened was, okay, so I got home. I'm pregnant. I'm 16 years old. Okay. Like, she's like, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. She already had mapped out my whole life. She gave me a piece of paper. She's like, this is gonna happen. I was like, okay, whatever, lady. It's okay. So what I did was, I still was in school.
You didn't miss a beat.
I didn't miss a beat because, okay, let's go back a little bit. My first year in high school, my first year, I had 1 credit. Uno. Instead of 8, I had 1. So my mother was like, now you're pregnant?
I know the Haitian look.
She was like, so you're going to be a bum? You're going to be a housekeeper? What are you going to do with yourself? And I used to be like, what are you talking? Because that's what people does. It's just like, okay, whatever. So, okay. So fast forward, I get pregnant. I'm in cheerleading. I'm in dancing.
I want to turn it off. There we go.
I'm in cheerleading, I'm in dancing, I'm working. So my mom is like, why are you working? You don't need to work, Mom. I want to work to make my own money. That's why you got pregnant now. What do you, I was like, okay, everything was an argument. Because my sisters, they were the perfect kids. My mom said make a right, they made a right. Oh, I'm gonna make that left because I'm me, I'm different, and everybody who knows me is like, that's just how she is. So now I am 16 years old, have all this activity, didn't miss a beat. I'm in cheerleading, doing flips, back flip, front flips, every types of flips, splits, and with a big stomach and everything. People's like, how can you do it? I'm like, I see my mother take care of 7 kids on her own, and if she can do it, I can do it. So I already had that mentality, and she was like, the only thing I asked of you, for you to graduate at high school. Okay, no problem. So I graduated out of high school. My daughter was turning 2 at the time, and even though I had her, I still was fighting. A month later after I had her, I went back to school. I got into an altercation in school, and I was fighting this girl, and someone in the crowd cut me, my face from my temple all the way down. So when I ran back into the school, of course, it was a trail of blood from where I was at all the way to the nurse's office, and everybody is screaming like, oh my gosh, but I didn't see my face because I can't see it, but I know it's blood dripping, so I'm thinking that I got scratched. So when I get into the office and the nurse was like, and she started to cry, she was like, oh my, and I was like, is it really that bad? So when I go in the mirror, I said, my mother's gonna kill me. Oh, gosh. And the adrenaline just was like flat. I was just like, okay. So when I go, They called my mother. I'm at the hospital. I'm getting stitches inside and out of my face. She just was like, do you see this why you don't never listen? Okay, Mom, I understand. Still didn't miss a beat. Went back to school that next following month. Like, I told the girl, I said, every single time I see you, I'm going to torture you. And I meant it. Every period I seen her, I tortured her. So it was just like the rebel in me was like, because of you, you did this, and you're going to learn and you're going to pay. So that's why I say our stories is almost the same.
And where's God? He's there.
He's always there.
That's
but
right.
the thing is that when you're young, you really don't listen to your inner self. Well, you do in a sense, but another sense just is like, I hear you, but
I know you're there.
Right. But I know you're always going to be there, no matter what. So fast forward, when I turned 35, all of a sudden it was just like I turned 35, all this stuff started to change. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, why does my body hurt? Why do I feel like I have the flu? Why is this? Why is that? What is this? So they couldn't figure out what was wrong. 2 years go by. They was like, oh, that you have fibromyalgia. Okay. But it's more to it. So what happened was one day, I wasn't feeling good. I was running a temperature of 104 at work. I'm sweating, soaking wet, hair, clothes, drenched. So I was like, let me go to the doctor. I was like, I'm leaving work. So I went to the doctor. He's like, you have a temperature of 104. They admitted me in. They couldn't break my temperature. So after finally, like the fourth day, it was just like, okay. They gave me antibiotics. They gave me suppository. They gave me everything that you could possibly. I was like, if you touch me one more time, just leave me alone. So finally, it was like, okay, so they finally broke my temperature. I go back to work 3 days later, temperature again. So I went through this for like about 3 months straight. So for the 3 months, I was like, okay, something is wrong, and they just can't figure it out. They ran every test possible. I went so many doctors. I was like, okay, I'm tired of saying the same and filling out the same paperwork, answering the same questions and everything else like that. So finally, my older sister was like, and she's a nurse, she said, ask your doctor to go ahead and run.
But her.
I'm telling you, my whole family
exactly.
is. It just is like, my older sister said, ask your doctor for her to run. It's called, the inflammation level to see where it's at in your body. I said, well, why? She said, just have her run it. So I went to the doctor the next day. I said, my sister said to run this test. She was like, you know what, I didn't think of that. She ran that test 9 o'clock that morning. 7 o'clock that evening, she said, you have the emergency appointment tomorrow at 9 o'clock. This is the address, be there. And I was like, okay, what's going on?
I hate those calls. I hate those calls.
So I was like, okay, but the thing was that I prayed about it because I was like, I need to find out what is wrong with me because I need to figure this out. I need to heal. Yeah. I'm tired of feeling this way. I need to heal. So I was at my wit's end. I just was like, Lord, please. So now things started to really fall into place after that. So I went to the doctor the next morning. He was like, so when I gave him the vascular diagnosis, I was running temperature for 3 months. My lips got dark, and I just feel like I have the flu. He was like, you have lupus. And I said, what are you talking about? I was like, how did you get that from that? He said, the symptoms. I said, but I only gave you one. He said, no, your body hurts. And he just started saying all the other things. He was like, your joint hurts. And he was like, your hair's going to fall out soon. Really?
Nice.
Thank you. So I was like, okay. So he said, okay. He said, we're going to run the test. In 3 days, we're going to call you back. So I decided to go back to work. I get the phone call at work. So I go, I answer it. Miss St. Louis, we're going to go to pharmacy. You're going to start on steroids. And there's protein in your urine, so we're going to start you on CellSap. What is all, why? So I go back to my desk. I'm Googling, what is this? What is that? What does it mean? What's the side effect? And everything else like that. But when he gave me the diagnosis, I was relieved because now I finally knew I could figure this out, and I'm finally knowing how I can deal with this.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, fine. So what happened was I went to him the next following day, and he sat me down. He gave me a pamphlet. So I was like, I did my research. I was like, WebMD. He was like, okay. I said, okay. He was like, y'all with this Googling stuff. I said, yes, that's fine. So basically, he said to me, does it run in your family? And I said, my older sister has it. So he said, yeah. He said, pretty much it is, like it runs in the family and everything else like that. And I said, well, my niece has it too. He said, yeah. And I was like, okay, no problem. So now, once that he went ahead and he told me, I had to figure out how to make me feel good because everybody diagnosed was different. My niece diagnosed, she was having kidney problems. My sister diagnosed, she was having lung issues. So everybody's was different. It wasn't no set to be like, okay, you have lupus, because that lupus attacks all of your major organs. So that being said, I was just like, okay. So the next following month, I got really, really sick. And I was running the temperature, my body hurt. I couldn't walk, I couldn't open a bottle. I was just like, everything was hurting from head to toe. So when I went and it was like, they ran a test and they said, well, you have thalassemia A. What? Where did this come, why? So they was like, yeah, I was just like, so they said, so now you have to tell people that you have sickle cell trait thalassemia A because it is a blood disorder disease also, just like sickle cell, but you just can't have a lot of iron in your system. And because that, with me first being diagnosed with having lupus, he gave me a lot of iron, so my iron level overflowed, and that's why I ended up having a crisis because I had too much iron in my system. Okay, so I was like, okay. So what I did was I went ahead, Googled again, how am I going to change my diet? What can I do in order for me to feel better? And it just was like, okay, now I understand. And it's a struggle, but that's why Style Stories is.
So with what is lupus?
Lupus, it is like it's like an autoimmune disease, and it pretty much.
And where's God? He's there.
He's always there.
That's
but
right.
the thing is that when you're young, you really don't listen to your inner self. Well, you do in a sense, but another sense just is like, I hear you, but
I know you're there.
Right. But I know you're always going to be there, no matter what. So fast forward, when I turned 35, all of a sudden, it was just like, I turned 35, all this stuff started to change. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, why does my body hurt? Why do I feel like I have the flu? Why is this? Why is that? What is this? So they couldn't figure out what was wrong. 2 years go by. They was like, oh, that you have fibromyalgia. Okay. But it's more to it. So what happened was one day, I wasn't feeling good. I was running a temperature of 104 at work. I'm sweating, soaking wet, hair, clothes, drenched. So I was like, let me go to the doctor. I was like, I'm leaving work. So I went to the doctor. He's like, you have a temperature of 104. They admitted me in. They couldn't break my temperature. So after finally, like the fourth day, it was just like, okay. They gave me antibiotics. They gave me suppository. They gave me everything that you could possibly. I was like, if you touch me one more time, just leave me alone. So finally, it was like, okay, so they finally broke my temperature. I go back to work 3 days later, temperature again. So I went through this for like about 3 months straight. So for the 3 months, I was like, okay, something is wrong, and they just can't figure it out. They ran every test possible. I went so many doctors. I was like, okay, I'm tired of saying the same, and filling out the same paperwork, answering the same questions and everything else like that. So finally, my older sister was like, and she's a nurse, she said, ask your doctor to go ahead and run.
But her.
I'm telling you, my whole family
exactly.
is. It just is like, my older sister said, ask your doctor for her to run. It's called, the inflammation level to see where it's at in your body. I said, well, why? She said, just have her run it. So I went to the doctor the next day. I said, my sister said to run this test. She was like, you know what, I didn't think of that. She ran that test 9 o'clock that morning. 7 o'clock that evening, she said, you have the emergency appointment tomorrow at 9 o'clock. This is the address, be there. And I was like, okay, what's going on?
I hate those calls. I hate those calls.
So I was like, okay, but the thing was that I prayed about it because I was like, I need to find out what is wrong with me because I need to figure this out. I need to heal.
Yeah.
I'm tired of feeling this way. I need to heal. So I was at my wit's end. I just was like, Lord, please. So now things started to really fall into place after that. So I went to the doctor the next morning. He was like, so when I gave him that's the diagnosis, I was running temperature for 3 months. My lips got dark, and I just feel like I have the flu. He was like, you have lupus. And I said, what are you talking about? I was like, how did you get that from that? He said, the symptoms. I said, but I only gave you one. He said, no, your body hurts. And he just started saying all the other things. He was like, your joint hurts. And he was like, your hair's going to fall out soon. Really?
Nice.
Thank you. So I was like, okay. So he said, okay. He said, we're going to run the test. In 3 days, we're going to call you back. So I decided to go back to work. I get the phone call at work. So I go, I answer it. Miss St. Louis, we're going to go to pharmacy. You're going to start on steroids. And there's protein in your urine, so we're going to start you on Cellsat. What is all, why? So I go back to my desk. I'm Googling, what is this? What is that? What does it mean? What's the side effect? And everything else like that. But when he gave me the diagnosis, I was relieved because now I finally knew I could figure this out, and I'm finally knowing how I can deal with this.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, fine. So what happened was I went to him the next following day, and he sat me down. He gave me a pamphlet. So I was like, I did my research. I was like, WebMD. He was like, okay. So I said, okay. He was like, y'all with this Google and stuff. I said, yes, that's fine. So basically, he said to me, does it run in your family? And I said, my older sister has it. So he said, yeah. He said, pretty much it is, like it runs in the family and everything else like that. And I said, well, my niece has it too. He said, yeah. And I was like, okay, no problem. So now, once that he went ahead and he told me, I had to figure out how to make me feel good because everybody diagnosed was different. My niece diagnosed, she was having kidney problems. My sister diagnosed, she was having lung issues. Everybody's was different. It wasn't no set to be like, okay, you have lupus. You have because that lupus attacks all of your major organs. So that being said, I was just like, okay. So the next following month, I got really, really sick. And I was running the temperature. My body hurt. I couldn't walk. I couldn't open a bottle. I was just like, everything was hurting from head to toe. So when I went and it was like, they ran a test and they said, well, you have thalassemia A. What? Where did this come, why? So they was like, yeah, I was just like, so they said, so now you have to tell people that you have sickle cell trait thalassemia A because it is a blood disorder disease also, just like sickle cell, but you just can't have a lot of iron in your system. And because that, with me first being diagnosed with having lupus, he gave me a lot of iron. So my iron level overflowed, and that's why I ended up having a crisis because I had too much iron in my system. Okay. So I was like, okay. So what I did was I went ahead, Googled again, how am I going to change my diet? What can I do in order for me to feel better? And it just was like, okay, now I understand. And it's a struggle, but that's why Style Stories is.
So with what is lupus?
Lupus, it is like an autoimmune disease, and it pretty much.
To knowing that God was there, and He is still there, you were more so wanting to go it on your own. You know, like so many of us. You know, if we like, okay, yes, growing up, God is prevalent in the house.
Right.
We know nothing else.
Right.
Okay, we know that He's not an option. You grow up. It's God is the supreme being, and that's it.
Right.
And we pray. Prayers were different then because you didn't really know Him. Like I always say when I share my story, I was walking with Him, and then when things shifted, me and my candy. When things shifted, it was he walking with me.
Right.
He walking with me because he's leading me.
Mhm.
Before, I was doing the leading. So
Right.
he's
Yeah.
like, he gives us free will,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So, you know, do you,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But you're
And
still gonna
I
come back to
know.
me.
It's
Exactly.
full
Because
circle.
I know I chose you.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you're going through what you're going through, you're still chosen.
Yeah.
Yes.
For this time, this season, there's a mandate on your life.
Mm-hmm.
And people are set up to help you while you help others.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Yes.
now, in this walk, I want you, Dee Dee, to go into finish the rest of your story, because you stopped short when you were like, I surrendered.
I
to
didn't
God.
surrender yet.
Okay.
I was still kind of upset, just the fact that, you know, everything that was going on. And then I found out I was pregnant again.
Mhm.
But it wasn't until, I would say, during my second trimester that I got really, really sick. And I also have the sickle cell trait.
Right.
So I sometimes suffer from like really, really bad anemia to the point where I would have to go on iron pills, even though I hate taking pills. But like, you have to take an iron pill and a vitamin. And I was like, great stuff for me. Sure, on top of all the other treatments and stuff I'm taking, this is gonna be fun. But I told myself, I'm gonna start praying. And it wasn't until after like my whole grandmother passed away and everything that I started praying, but it was like, you know, the little microwave prayers, you know, thank you, Lord, I made it through the day, amen. All right, awesome. Go about my day. It wasn't until I was walking home from school once, and it was winter. And of course, it was like 11 o'clock at night, pregnant, big old belly, wobbling all over the place. I was walking, and I'm usually very cautious about my surroundings, but for some reason I was tired. I didn't care who was walking by. I was just like, I'm just gonna walk about. Walking, and I heard a noise, and I turned, but when I turned back quickly to go into the driveway, I slipped, and I landed face first on the ice. Mind you, I'm like 7 months pregnant, and I rolled over, and I just lay there, and I felt the most sharpest pain on the left side, and I was just like, Lord, if you're going to take me, let this baby live. That's the least you can do out of everything that I've been through. That's the least. But I got up, and then I went home. I put Epsom salt, you know, took a bath.
So you didn't go to the doctor?
No, it was like 11 o'clock at night.
No emergency room, nothing. You just,
I was like, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to sleep it off. I got this.
So you really was hard-headed.
Yes. I was
Okay.
I was stone hard-headed. That was me. And
I love how you say that was me.
that was me, because I learned my lesson. I got enough beatings from God. I learned my lesson. It's okay. I know how it is now. I know what not to do to avoid it.
Exactly, right.
But you know
But
what?
you learned your lesson.
Yes, that's the one thing I'm grateful for with everything, because I had my youngest daughter in April, and I remember around my birthday, I turned 21, and I was talking to my friend Michelle, and I was just like, all right, Lord, I have to find. Well, no, this was before I met Michelle. I was like, okay, Lord, I have to find a church.
Right.
I was like, I don't care how you send this church to me. If it's some people coming to my door, I have to find a church. I woke up one day, and I was like, I'm gonna Google some. I was like, Google has everything now. I'm gonna Google. I Googled church close to me, and the first church that popped up was Central Islip Seventh-day Adventist Church. I was like, oh, click, it's you. I got the address, and I was like, oh, it's like 10 minutes from my house. Even better. So I was like, you know what? I was like, I had a feeling I know what it was about, because I grew up Adventist with my sister. I went to an Adventist school. I used to go to an Adventist church, even though my mom was Baptist. But since, you know, my sisters and aunts raised me, I was raised Adventist. And I was just like, I think I still kind of remember how they do it. Okay, I kind of know this, so I'm all right. I went to church one Sabbath in sweats and a shirt, pregnant. You know, I went there to get information about the pastor so I could talk to him and tell him I want to come and join the church. I went there, and they just was like, come in. And I was like, no, I just want to get information. That's all. You know, I know you guys are having service. And it was like, no, come, sit down here. I was just like, oh my gosh. I'm in sweats. Everybody's all in their nice Sabbath attire. And here I am with sweats and Tim's on. I was like, Jesus, I cannot stay here. I was like, I'm not even dressed. But they welcomed me like I've been there always. And next Saturday, I got up, I got dressed, and I went to church. Amen. And it was, I can't even say it was an enlightening experience, but when I came home that day, I cried. And it wasn't because, oh my God, I survived church. It was just like, I realized that through all the mess, through the gangs and the fighting and the diagnosis and this and that, he did not leave me once. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, now I know that I wasn't lucky, I was blessed.
You was chosen.
Yes.
Because you have a story to tell.
And I was like, and I never understood it. Like, till even then, I didn't understand it. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to church. And I made sure every Sabbath I was at church. Mm-hmm. Even if it has to have someone pick me up, mm-hmm. I was at church. And of course, we all know how the enemy is.
Oh, yeah.
Once we start walking in the right way, he brings everything that he can to distract, destroy, steal, everything. So I would say I was going to the church for about like maybe 2 to 3 months. Mm-hmm. And then of course my water break and I go into labor. Great, joyous occasion, right? Of course. Still couldn't get most of the medication for the pain because of the treatments, which sucks because we gave birth. So it's like, oh, this is what Eve went through. Got you. Awesome. So.
And how long did you have to go through treatments? How many months?
Oh, no, I was doing treatments for 9 years. It was a continual thing because I went into remission twice. Right. And I was like, okay, I was in remission. And I started eating healthier. I was like, all right, you know, I have to avoid stress. The doctor wanted me. And I was like, how am I supposed to do that? Stress, I wake up and there's stress. So, but it was a continual thing, but I tried to stay consistent with it. And I went into labor.
When you were diagnosed that it had spread to your lungs, when you had gone